Hello class. So today we are going to see the chapter surface chemistry. Let us begin and let us know what is surface chemistry basically consists of. Okay, surface chemistry basically is that part of chemistry which deals with the chemical reaction taking on the surface. Basically, it is concerned only with the surface part. Okay, now whenever we are going to study the surface chemistry, it is mainly based on the phenomenon which is known as adsorption. Now, what is adsorption? Adsorption means what? It is the phenomenon of attracting and retaining the molecule of substance on the surface of solid or liquid, resulting into higher concentration of molecule on the surface than in bulk. Okay, for example, if we see do you know something known as silica gel? So whenever you are going to buy silica, basically a new bag or any new item, you find that a new purse or anything, you find a pouch which consists of some of the balls in it. Okay, so that pouch is nothing but it is made up of silica gel. Now why is silica gel or such pouches is basically put into a new item? What happens? Basically it will absorb the moisture. Absorb the moisture means what? It is going to absorb the moisture contained on the surface of the silica gel. So silica gel is one of the such example. So if I'm taking one object, for example, if this is object, the absorption means what? The molecules are basically attracted only on the surface. So you can see that there is bulk of substance which are getting attracted on the surface of the substance. Okay, so this phenomena which retains the molecule on the surface is known as adsorption. Okay, it is not a bulk phenomena, means what? It is not going to wholly absorb. Okay, so the basic difference now basically adsorption will consist of two parts. Adsorption will consist of, one is known as adsorbate, okay, and the second one is known as adsorbent. What is adsorbate? Adsorbate is that species which basically accumulate on the surface. For example, if I have a charcoal, okay, if this is a charcoal ball and if I put it in the oxygen or nitrogen in a container consisting of nitrogen and oxygen, so you can see that the oxygen and nitrogen are adsorbed on the surface of the charcoal. Okay, they are adsorbed on the surface of the charcoal. This oxygen and nitrogen, they both are known as adsorbate. Okay, and what is adsorbent? Adsorbent is that substance on which the adsorption is taking place. Okay, so this charcoal is nothing but it is adsorbent. Okay, and the adsorption of gas on the metal surface is called occultation. Okay, the adsorption of gases on the metal surface are known as what? It is known as occultation. Okay, when adsorption, okay, adsorption plus adsorption is known as sorption, and reverse of adsorption is known as deadsorption. Sometimes what happens that whatever adsorption is done, okay, it will be reversed also. So this gas, basically this gas can go into their elemental form also. So that phenomena is known as what? It is known as reversible adsorption or deadsorption. Okay, now let us see more about adsorption. Now types of adsorption. Adsorption are basically categorized into two types. One is known as physical adsorption and the second one is known as chemical adsorption. What do you understand by physical adsorption? Physical adsorption is that adsorption where the particles are held on the surface by the physical forces, physical or weak forces such as van der Waals forces. Okay, on which the particle are held by weak van der Waals forces. Okay, basically the adsorption, physical adsorption is the weak adsorption. What we can say, it is the weak adsorption. What you have to remember is the extent of physical adsorption decreases with increase in temperature. Okay, it will decrease with the increase in temperature. What will happen if you increase the temperature? The physical adsorption will decrease. Okay, so this is what, this is physical adsorption. Okay, and one more thing, it is reversible in nature. Okay, it is reversible in nature. Wherever, if you are talking about chemical adsorption, Chemical adsorption is the adsorption which in which the particle held to the surface by the chemical forces or the chemical bond. So it is the strong adsorption. Okay, the adsorption is the strong adsorption. Okay, now with increase, do remember, with increase in temperature, chemical adsorption or chemisorption basically increases to some extent and then it will decrease. Okay, initially it will increase to some extent and then it will decrease. Okay, so the heats of adsorption, you have to remember what is the heat of adsorption of chemical adsorption. It is basically minus 242. It lies between 42 to 40 kilojoules. Okay, whereas physical adsorption, the heat of adsorption lies between 20 to 40 kilojoules. Okay, clear? Okay, now let's move to the next type. Now let us see some of the physical adsorption and chemical adsorption, some of the difference between them. Like enthalpy, as I have already told you, it consists of low enthalpy, it consists of high enthalpy, that is 80 to 240, and this is from 20 to 40 kilojoules. Okay, reversibility, basically physical adsorption is reversible in nature, whereas chemical adsorption is irreversible in nature. Okay, what is the effect of temperature? With the effect of temperature is that with increase adsorption will decrease, and about chemical adsorption, first increases with the temperature and then it will start decreasing. Okay, selectivity, physical adsorption is non-selective in nature, whereas chemical adsorption are highly selective in nature. You have to remember this. Okay, and the nature and the state of adsorbate. Okay, what is the nature and state of the adsorbate? That extents of adsorption depend upon the ease of liquefaction. Okay, the extent of adsorption will depend on what? It will depend upon ease of liquefaction in case of physical adsorption. Okay, in case of chemical adsorption, the states of adsorption or adsorb molecule may be different from that in bulk. Okay, activation energy, here in physical adsorption no energy is needed, whereas in chemical adsorption high activation energy is needed. And talking about pressure, increase in pressure increases the adsorption, whereas increase in pressure will decrease the adsorption. Okay, and layers, physical adsorption is of multi-molecular layer, whereas chemical adsorption is of monomolecular layer. Okay, so this was some of the difference which may be asked in your CET examinations. You have to remember this. Okay, now let's move to the next one. Now let us learn about what are the factors which affect the adsorption of gases. Okay, so first one is nature of adsorbate. Nature of adsorbate means what? More readily soluble. Okay, more easily the substance is soluble and more easily liquefiable gas they are. Okay, the more adsorption they undergo. Okay, so they are adsorbed than the permanent gases. Those gases which are readily soluble or which are readily liquefied, they are easily adsorbed, okay, than the permanent gases. And the ease of liquefaction will depend upon its critical temperature, which we have already discussed earlier. Okay, higher the critical temperature, more easily it will liquefy. Now what is the nature of adsorbent? That is solid. Okay, so the substance on which the adsorption is going to take place, it should be highly porous or finely divided. Will those surfaces which are highly porous and finely divided will have large adsorption power. So most common adsorbate which you can see is activated carbon, or you can say charcoal, silica gel, okay, which I have already discussed the example, aluminium oxide and clay. Now let us see some more factors. Surface area of solvent. To remember, larger the surface area, larger will be the adsorption. Okay, large the surface area, large will be the adsorption, less the surface area, less will be the adsorption. Temperature, adsorption, as adsorption is an exothermic process. Exothermic means what? While adsorption phenomenon is taking place, there is release of heat. So therefore, as the temperature increases, adsorption will decrease. Okay, But when we are talking about chemical adsorption, first with the increase in temperature, the adsorption will increase, but later on with the decrease in temperature, with the increase in temperature, there is decrease in adsorption. Okay, so talking about pressure, at constant temperature, the adsorption of gases increases with increase in pressure. Why? Because as the pressure increases, the gas is more easily liquefied, and the more easily the gas is liquefied, the more easily it undergoes adsorption, as we have already seen this. Okay, now let us learn what is adsorption isotherm. Basically, adsorption isotherm is a graph between amount of substance adsorbed by an adsorbent and the equilibrium pressure of the adsorbate at the constant temperature. Okay, so you can see the graph over here. So in the intermediate range of pressure, that is x upon m is equal to what? It is equal to k into p to the power 1 nth, was originally put forward by none other than Freundlich. So this adsorption isotherm is known as what? It is known as Freundlich isotherm. Okay, so what does basically this adsorption explain is, it explains the relationship of amount of substance adsorbed and the equilibrium gas pressure at the constant pressure. Okay, so this is the mass of gas adsorbed per unit area. It is what? It is the mass of gas adsorbed per unit area. Per unit area. Okay, so you can see that as pressure increases, the extent of or the mass of gas adsorbed per unit area will increase. Okay, till the pressure. Now here you can see as the pressure increases, but the adsorption is constant. So this point where the adsorption becomes constant is known as saturation pressure. Okay, is known as what? It is known as saturation pressure. Okay, so this tells us what? This tells us that at equilibrium, amount of gas adsorbed is equal to amount of gas deadsorbed. So this is the pressure, but amount of gas adsorbed will be equal to amount of gas deadsorbed. Okay, now when Freundlich came, Freundlich divided this graph into some three parts, that is at low pressure, at high pressure, and at medium pressure. Okay, so according to Freundlich, what he said, if we are talking about low pressure, okay, at low pressure, mass per unit area, mass of gas adsorbed per unit area is directly proportional to pressure. Okay, and when we are talking about high pressure, what we can say that pressure, that mass of gas adsorbed per unit area is directly proportional to P naught. Okay, what is P naught? P naught is basically the initial pressure. Okay, and at intermediate, when I'm saying at intermediate pressure, you can see that x upon m, that is mass of gas adsorbed per unit area, is equal to k to the power 1 upon 1 nth. Okay, this equation was given by none other than Freundlich, where n is the integer which lies between 0.1 to 0.5. Clear? Okay, so this was the adsorption isotherm. Now let us learn what is catalysis. Catalyst is basically, as we already know what is catalyst, it is the substance which speed up the rate of reaction without getting involved in it. Then what is catalysis? Catalysis is basically the phenomenon of speeding up the reaction by the catalyst. So it is the phenomenon of speeding of the reaction by using catalyst. What you have to remember over here is, if this is EA is nothing but EA is activation energy. Okay, so if activation energy decreases, we have already seen this in kinetic theory. Okay, when we learn kinetic energy, that is Aron's equation, we have already learned that, and we have also already learned the what we can say, the activation energy over there. So activation energy is the energy required for the reaction to convert into product. Okay, so this activation energy, if activation energy decreases, what you can see that EA upon RT also decreases. Okay, but inverse of EA upon RT will increase. Okay, then we can say that E to the power minus EA upon RT will increase, which will in correspondence the proportionality constant will also increases and it will speed up the rate reaction. Okay, so this you have to remember because this is as well as important in chemical kinetics as it is important in this chapter surface chemistry also. Okay, now let us learn what are the characteristics of catalyst. Catalyst is basically remain unchanged. So whenever you are going to add catalyst to the reaction, it is not going to take part in the reaction. Its role is only to speed up the reaction. Okay, so basically it will remain unchanged in the amount and the chemical composition at the end of the reaction. Okay, why? Because it is not going to be used up. Only a small quantity of catalyst is generally needed. Okay, it does not alter the position of equilibrium. No, it will not affect the equilibrium in reversible reaction. It does not initiate the reaction, it only speed ups the reaction. Okay, it is generally specific in its action and it cannot alter the nature of the product because the product form will be what you want. It only speed up the reaction. Other than that, it has no other work. Okay. Now, what are homogeneous catalysts? Homogeneous catalysts are those catalysts which are present in same phase as the gaseous. Okay, if your reactant is in gaseous phase, your product will be in gaseous phase. Okay, such catalysts are known as homogeneous catalyst. Okay, and such process is known as homogeneous catalytic reaction. So whenever we are studying mechanism, first catalyst combines with the reactant to form an intermediate. Okay, and intermediate, what will happen to intermediate? This intermediate will either decompose or it will combine with each other reactant to form what? To form the product. Okay, for example, here you can see 2SO2 plus O2 gives 2SO3. Okay, so how does this reaction basically take place? Now if you are adding a catalyst, okay, so first 2NO will react with, okay, O2 to give 2NO2 and this NO2 will react with SO2 to give NO plus SO3. Now the catalyst is obtained as it is, okay, and you will get the product SO3. Understood? Okay, so this is homogeneous catalysis. Now what is heterogeneous catalysis? Heterogeneous catalysis is that catalyst in which the phases of the reactant and the product may differ. Okay, such catalysts are known as heterogeneous catalysts. For example, you can take the reactant as solid. Okay, you can take the catalyst as basically you can take the catalyst or liquid, gaseous or anything else. Okay, and your product will be may be different or may be the same. Okay, so here the phases are different. Okay, so what does the process basically take place? Over here the surface of catalyst reactant molecule, as we have first diffusion will take place. Okay, so we have already discussed that in earlier mechanism. So here what will happen, modern adsorption theory is of combination of adsorption and intermediate compound formation. For example, if we take 2H2 plus N2 will give you 2NH3. Okay, that is the formation of ammonia and the formation of alcohol. Okay, so this reaction are basically what we can say, they are heterogeneous reaction. Clear? Okay, so this is not basically gaseous, but this are the gaseous one. Okay, so your product may not be the product, reactant and the catalyst may not be of same phase. So that is known as heterogeneous catalysis. Now what is catalytic activity? Catalytic activity is nothing but it is the tendency of catalyst to increase the rate of reaction. Okay, it is the ability or tendency of the catalyst to increase the rate of reaction. The activity of catalyst can be increased by increasing the free valencies, which can be done by two way. How that can be done in two way? Okay, by subdivision of catalyst. Catalyst is subdivided in subdivided state or colloidal state are rich in free valencies and hence they are more effective catalyst than the metallum. And by rough surface of the catalyst, a catalyst with rough surface have more active centers or free valencies than the catalyst with smooth surface. Okay, one thing to remember about catalytic activity. So you have already known that group 5 to group 11, okay, they will consist of mainly catalyst, okay, and most catalytic activity is observed between group 7 to group 9, okay. Group 7 to group 9 show most catalytic activity. Okay, clear. Now let us learn about what is selectivity of catalyst. Selectivity of catalyst are basically, it is the ability of catalyst to direct a reaction to yield a particular product. Now you can say that some catalyst basically will yield some of the product. For example, if I take carbon monoxide plus hydrogen, okay, I have to form the methane. So if you use the catalyst N1, so it will do the reduction. So your reduction will take place in place of catalyst. If you use nickel, you will get CH4 plus H2O. Okay, now if you use the catalyst, now same reaction CO plus H2 is performed in the presence of copper or zinc oxide, you will get an alcohol as your product. Okay, and if you combine if you react carbon monoxide with hydrogen in presence of copper only, so it is going to give you an aldehyde. Okay, so here you can see your reactant is same, your reactant you used in the three processes same, but you are changing the catalyst. So your nickel will prefer forming an alkane, okay, copper with zinc oxide will prefer forming alcohol, and copper only will prefer forming aldehyde. So this shows that catalysts are basically selective in nature. Okay, now what is zeolite? Zeolite is the shape selective catalyst. Okay, zeolite is what? It is shape selective catalyst. This is the formula of zeolite, molecular formula of zeolite, where M may be Na plus, K plus or Ca. Okay, so the reaction selectivity of zeolite mainly depends upon the size of cavities, that is pores, and the distribution of pores. Okay, now let's move to the next part. What are enzyme catalysts? We already know what are enzyme catalysts, as we have already seen various processes in our body which is going on, the digestion process mainly. Okay, it consists various kind of enzymes which help in the process of digestion. So this catalyst basically speed up the rate of reaction in our stomach. Or if we normally see the catalytic action or the digestion process going inside a body, it will take a lot of time to metabolize. Okay, but due to this enzymes which are the which we also called it as biocatalyst, will help the metabolism to speed up. Okay, understood. So enzymes are what? Basically they are complex nitrogenous organic compound which are produced by living plants and animals. Okay, which we as a living plant or living animal also produce in our body, as you know. Okay, they have high molecular mass protein molecules. Okay, so enzyme form colloidal solution in water and a very effective catalyst. So enzyme are thus termed as biological catalyst, and the phenomenon is known as biological catalysis. Okay, for example, we will see various examples. Just an example we will see. Okay, if starch, you know what is starch. Okay, the potato we eat, it consists of starch. Now starch when we eat, in presence of hydrogen, when it react with hydrogen in presence of amylase, amylase is a catalyst. Okay, now when amylase act on this, it is going to form what? Glucose. Clear? Okay, let's see some of the examples on enzyme catalyst. Enzyme is invertase. So invertase source is what? It is obtained from yeast. Okay, what does it do? It will convert the sucrose into glucose and fructose. Okay, next enzyme is zymase. It is also obtained from yeast. It will convert the glucose to ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. Okay, now dietase basically the source is malt. It will convert the starch to maltose. Okay, maltase is obtained from yeast. It will convert the maltose to glucose. Okay, and urease is basically obtained from soybean, which will convert the urea into ammonia and carbon dioxide. Okay, Now let us learn what are colloidal state. Colloidal state is the colloid is not a substance, but it is the state of matter. We have already learned about colloidal state. Okay, we have learned the solution. Basically, when we are talking about a mixture is consist of three types, that is solution, suspension, and colloidal. So colloidal is what? It is not basically a substance, but it is the state of matter, just like solid, liquid, and gaseous. Okay, colloidal solution will consist of two phases. One is dispersed phase and the second one is dispersed medium. What is dispersed medium and what is dispersed phase? For example, we take water. Water. Okay, if water is what? This is the dispersed medium. Okay, and you add milk to it. So milk particle or the fat milk particle, basically the fat particle, protein particle. So this will be present in this minute particle will be present in whole liquid. So this milk is known as dispersed phase. Understood? So the size of particle may vary from 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer. Okay, they are only visible under ultra microscope. And of course, you also know what is Tyndall effect. When you pass the light through the colloidal solution, it will disperse the light. So it will make the path of the light visible. Okay, so this is known as colloidal state. Now this you have already learned in your earlier class also. We have learned it almost each and every time. So if now dispersed medium, if dispersed medium is gas, okay, if dispersed medium is liquid, and if dispersed medium is solid. Okay, now if gas is dispersed in gas, okay, if your solute is gas, its solute particle in solvent. Okay, so for example, air will consist of numerous number of other gases: oxygen, nitrogen, argon, carbon dioxide. Okay, liquid and gas is known as foam. Okay, like soap, whipped cream. Okay, then it is solid and gas. You already know, dust particle in the air, it is the form of solid and gas basically. So for example, rubber is solid and gas. Okay, pumic stone. Okay, if gas is added to the liquid, for example aerosol. Okay, it is known as what? It is the type of aerosol. For example, the fog, cloud, mist. Okay, next is liquid. In liquid form, emulsion. Okay, for example milk, emulsified oil. Okay, next is solid in liquid is gel. For example, cheese, butter, wood polish. Okay, gas and liquid is aerosol. For example, smoke, volcanic dust. Liquid and solid, they are known as liquid soul. For example, paint and ink. And solid and solid, they are known as solid soul, like ruby, glass, gemstone. Okay, now let us learn some of the properties, like what is lyophobic colloids. Okay, and what are lyophilic colloids. Now what is lyophilic colloids? Lyophilic colloids are those colloids who have great affinity towards the dispersed medium. Okay, what we can say, that dispersed phase have great affinity towards the dispersed medium. That is, they have strong interaction between dispersed phase and dispersed medium. Okay, then what is lyophobic? Lyophobic means what? There is very less affinity between the dispersed phase and dispersed medium. So they don't have great type of affinity existing between them. Okay, so they have weak interaction between dispersed phase and dispersed medium. How is basically preparation of lyophilic colloid take place? It is easy by heating or warming. By easy heating or warming, you can prepare lyophilic colloids. Okay, and for preparation of lyophobic, you require special method is required. Okay, reversibility, basically lyophilic colloids are reversible in nature. Okay, whereas lyophobic are basically irreversible in nature. Okay, stability, when talking about stability, lyophilic are more stable. Okay, and lyophilic are less stable. Clear? Okay, viscosity, they are higher than medium. Okay, viscosity of lyophilic colloids are higher than medium, and whereas viscosity of lyophobic colloids are same that of medium. Okay, surface tension, they have lower surface tension than the medium in which they are added. Okay, but they have, in lyophobic they have same surface tension. Okay, action of electrolyte, basically lyophilic colloids do not easily precipitate. You cannot form the precipitate of the lyophilic colloid, whereas you can see that lyophobic colloids easily form precipitation. Okay, due to coagulation taking place, precipitation is obtained. And whenever we are talking about hydration, basically lyophilic undergo extensive hydration. Basically they are also known as hydrophilic. Hydrophilic means they have great affinity towards the water. Okay, they have no hydration means what, they are hydrophobic. Hydrophobic means what, they have phobia of the water. Okay, example, gum, gelatin, starch, protein and rubber are the example of lyophilic, whereas the solution of metal like Ag, Au, metal sulfides like As2, S3 etc. are the example of lyophobic colloids. Clear? Okay. Now let us learn some of the classification of colloids based on the type of particle. Okay, first one is multimolecular colloids. So solution consists of aggregate of atom or small molecule with diameter. Basically multimolecular what is multimolecular? Okay, here what happened, smaller molecular that is less than 1 nanometer will aggregate, come together to form what, basically a big colloidal. They will aggregate together to form a big multimolecular colloid. Okay, so smaller molecular less than 1 nanometer will come and aggregate to form aggregate together to form a big one. For example, that is they are held by weak van der Waals forces. Gold sol, sulfur molecules. Okay, what is macromolecular? Macromolecular basically large size substance having big size molecule. Okay, they are large size substance having big size molecule. Okay, in which the dispersed phase particle have size in the range of colloidal size. Okay, so the dispersed particle are themselves large molecule, as I have already said. For example, you can see the protein, starch, cellulose. This will consist of protein, starch, cellulose. Okay, now what is Michel? What is Michel? Now talking about Michel, Michel is there are certain colloids which basically behave as normal strong electrolyte at low concentration, but they exhibit colloidal property at higher concentration. Okay, due to the formation of aggregate particles. So these are known as what? These are known as Michel. Understood what is Michel? Okay. Now, what are general properties of colloidal solution? General properties, when we are talking about colloidal solution, as we know, they are not naked seen by your naked eye. For example, milk particle cannot be seen by naked eye in the water, right? You will just see a white liquid. So they are not seen separately. Basically, they are not held or with the help of microscope. They are seen only under ultra microscope. Okay, filterability, if you pass them through ordinary filter paper, they are not going to filter, they are not going to separate, but okay, through parchment or the other fine papers they may be. Now what is heterogeneous character? Now colloidal solution are basically heterogeneous, they are not homogeneous solution. Okay, they are heterogeneous solution. Now what are the mechanical properties? Let's talk about mechanical property. Mechanical property is the, what is mechanical property? It is basically the zigzag motion of the colloidal particle in the dispersed medium. Okay, so what will happen, basically the colloidal particle are constantly in zigzag motion, due to which collision of particle of dispersed phase continuously take place. So here I have already written, the particle of dispersed medium constantly collide with the particle of dispersed phase. Okay, this causes the zigzag motion. Okay, basically here you can see in Brownian effect, they have the independent nature of collide, but dependent on the size of particle and viscosity of solution. Okay, so basically colloids are of independent nature, but they are dependent upon the size of particle and the viscosity of solution. So you already know, smaller the size and less viscous, greater is the motion, and larger is the size and more viscous, lower will be its motion. Okay, now talking about sedimentation, the colloidal particle will never settle down, as we have seen this the suspension liquids. Okay, so when you're going to add mud to the water, it will finally settle down. But have you ever seen the colloidal particles such as milk, which will settle down after some time and the clear water will be seen above? No, it never happens. Okay, so the colloidal particle settle will not basically settle down. Okay, it will be only settle it will only settle if you put it under the process of centrifugation. Now, what are electrical properties of colloidal solution? To explain the electrical properties of colloidal solution, you should know what is electrophoresis. Electrophoresis is that where the colloidal particle possesses some electric charge. Colloidal particle basically consists of some electric charge. This can be shown by a diagram where you can see what is electrophoresis basically. Okay, in electrophoresis, because of this charged colloidal particle, you have one U-shaped tube, okay, stopped by a stopcock, and in one the wire is suspended. Okay, so what you can say, because of the charge, colloidal particle move when electric field is basically, now this is connected to an electric field. What will happen when electric field is applied? The colloidal particle will move, and this phenomenon or movement of, you can see that if they are of negative charge, they will flow towards the negative rod. Okay, and if they are positive charge, sorry, if they are of negative charge, they will flow toward positive, and if they are positive charge, they flow towards negative. So this shows that colloidal particle are charged particle, they consist of electrical charge. This phenomenon or movement of colloidal particle under the influence of electric charge is known as electrophoresis. Okay, electrophoresis is basically used to determine the charge on particle. And what is electroosmosis? Electroosmosis is that phenomenon or the movement of molecule from the dispersed medium under the influence of electric field. Okay, whereas the colloidal particle are not allowed it to move. Clear? Okay. Now let us see what is optical particle. Optical properties of the optical properties of the colloidal solution. Optical properties, when we are explaining about optical properties, that is the phenomenon of scattering of the light by the colloidal particle, okay, which is also known as the Tyndall effect. Okay, so what does this show? The Tyndall effect, what does it confirm? That it consists of heterogeneous, basically the colloidal solution is heterogeneous in nature, because homogeneous is unable to scatter the light, or it is unable to display you the path of the beam. Okay, now coagulation of flocculation. What is coagulation and flocculation? The phenomenon of precipitation of colloidal solution by addition of an electrolyte. Okay, what is it? It is the phenomenon of properties of basically precipitation of colloidal solution by adding a selective electrolyte is nothing but coagulation, that is you form the PPT. Okay, and the minimum concentration of an electrolyte required to cause the coagulation is what? Of 1 liter of colloidal solution in is its flocculation value. Okay, what is flocculation value? Flocculation value is basically the minimum concentration of an electrolyte required to cause the coagulation of 1 liter of colloidal solution. Okay, so this was all about the optical properties. So we have seen some of the important properties. Now let us see what some of the more properties of the like what is Hardy-Stichler's rule. Okay, it says that the greater the valency of coagulating ion added, the greater is its power to cause coagulation. Okay, so flocculation value is given by 1 upon coagulation power. Okay, and protecting power is given as 1 is directly proportional to, inversely proportional to 1 by gold number. Okay, so what is gold number? It is the number of mg or milligrams of dry protective colloids required to just prevent the coagulation of 10 ml of red gold solve when 1 ml of 10% solution of NaCl is added is known as what? Gold number. Clear? Okay. Now let us learn the last part of it. What is emulsion basically? Emulsion is what? It is the colloidal system in which the dispersed medium is liquid and the dispersed phase is also the liquid. Okay, so both the dispersed phase and dispersed medium is liquid. So such type of colloidal system is known as emulsion. Okay, so generally when we are talking about emulsion, they are unstable and they form two separating layer on standing for some time. Clear? Okay, so emulsion can be stabilized. Emulsion is basically stabilized by adding emulsifier. So if you add emulsifier to the emulsion, it will be stabilized. Okay, so what are types of emulsion? Types of emulsion, for example, oil in water. Okay, when oil is suspended in water, for example, milk, you know, they are fat globules. Fat globule is the form of oil. They are dispersed in water, so this is form of emulsion. Okay, and second type is water in oil. Water in is oil is butter. Okay, in butter you can see that there is water mixed in oil. So if you churn after churning, you can get the butter out easily. Clear? Okay. Now, what is emulsification? Let us learn some of the important term of emulsion. What is emulsification? It is the process of making emulsion. Okay, the process of making emulsion is known as emulsification. Okay, to stabilize an emulsion, small amount of emulsifying agent is added. For example, soap and detergent are emulsifier. Why? Because they coat the drop of emulsion and check for the coming together. So whenever what is going to happen, soap and detergent when immersed in water, so you have already learned there are two ends of soap. One will be hydrophobic and one will be hydrophilic. Okay, so that will one will have great affinity towards the water and the other will have great affinity towards the dirt. Okay, so it will remove the dirt easily. Okay, next one is demulsification. What is demulsification? Basically, demulsification is separation of emulsion from its constituent liquid. Okay, that is separation of emulsion from its constituent liquid is known as what? Demulsification. So there are various techniques applied for the demulsification. For example, freezing, boiling. Main is centrifugation. We mainly apply centrifugation, or electrostatic precipitation, or any chemical method, okay, which may be known. Now, what are the properties of emulsion? When we are learning about properties of emulsion, emulsion exhibit all type of properties such as Tyndall effect, Brownian movement, electrophoresis, coagulation, and addition of electrolyte, which is basically shown by the colloidal solution also. Okay, so the size of dispersed particle in immersion is basically larger than that of salts. For example, it ranges from 1000 ampere to 100 ampere to 1000 ampere. Okay, clear?